the shadows. I see them on my brain.
Hey y'all, how are you tonight? It's your girl No Mercy here. It's Tuesday night, so you already know what time it is. It's time for No Punches Pulled with No Mercy. Some of you probably already know who I am, some of you may not. So I'm your host, Brooke Millbrook, formerly in the fight game known as Brooke No Mercy Dierdorff. I'm a retired professional boxer, held the WBC lightweight title, and now as of 2022, I was inducted into the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. I've been through some good, some ups, bads, some BS in the sport of boxing. This is my platform where we talk the talk and we walk the walk. We're going to bring out the truth in women's boxing. So you'll hear from some pioneers, past boxers, current boxers, future champions, a little bit from all of them, and hear the stories that all of us have been through. You don't want to miss it. Today's show, hopefully you guys caught the title. It's called, we're doing an interview with Malissa Smith, author, advocate, and connoisseur of women's boxing. Everyone that's joining me today, this special guest is such an amazing woman. I am honored to call her a friend. She's a huge advocate for women's boxing. She's also the author of A History of Women's Boxing, and currently writing a new book scheduled to release next year. She's got a blog, Girlboxing, and also is co-host on War Room, talking all about boxing as well. Everybody help me welcome in Malissa Smith. Hi, Malissa. How are you?
Hey, Brooke. How are you? Thank you.
I am so excited to have you here with me today. Thank you for joining me on my show.
Thank you.
How have you been since the induction?
Been good. It was so exciting when we inducted you along into the class of 2022. I think we're still really excited about it because we had a great showing and we're getting geared up for the 10th anniversary this coming October 6th and 7th. And that is really going to be such an exciting opportunity to continue to really display the brilliance that is women in the boxing game.
Yes, definitely. We're going to definitely talk about that tonight too. So I figured we'd start off kind of like hit the rewind button and go back to like the beginning of your love for boxing. Tell everybody how your boxing journey began. Where did it start, and how did your strong love for boxing, like, where did it all begin?
Well, to tell you the truth, I grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and in the early 1960s, and there would be kids out on the street boxing, showing off their moves, and we're talking 8, 9, 10-year-old boys. I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I watched them. I go, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that, right. But I just didn't kind of have the imagination for me actually doing it. And then my brother was taking boxing at the boys club, and I was like, dang, I really want to do that. So I had an uncle show me the 1-2, and I was so proud of myself because I could turn a jab. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. But
right,
figure out that I could actually do it for many, many decades later. And I was actually in my early 40s when I walked into Gleason's gym in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and said, I can do this. I can train. I can learn how to box.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
It's never too late. And I still do it. I'm in my late 60s, and I still hit the gym and work out with my trainer, Lennox Blackmore, who's a former Commonwealth lightweight champion. And out of all of that, that experience of overcoming my own fears about my physical being, if you will, mm-hmm. I was able to have that journey into the power that is boxing for women in particular, especially in my generation. We never really allowed to show our physical power. We were always told to be quiet. Mm-hmm. Our inside voice was our outside voice and everything else. Yeah. So, and literally, Brooke, the first time I ever sparred, I burst into tears hitting somebody.
Yeah.
It was just like a little tap, and the tears are streaming out of my eyes. I was like, get me out of here.
Oh, no.
I had to take my gloves off, my mask, everything. It was just so freaked out by that process of
it's very intense, especially when you first start. Very, very intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my oldest daughter, we tried to get her just for self-defense, and she's probably had the same. We never made her spar or anything or had her spar. We never got that far, but she probably would have had the same reaction because she just didn't want to hit anything. Just
Right.
no. So yeah, I can picture that. I didn't quite have that reaction, but I think the hardcore fighters, we have a different mindset, I guess, when we're in there. You kind of just turn it on and off.
Yeah, you do. And, certainly now I don't have a problem. But
It
it
takes a
was like,
while. You got to get there.
yeah, for me, I had to get there and I had to overcome my own fear of power. And I think
Yes,
it was much less about hitting someone
and
and
releasing it.
more about an expression of power, of
Yes,
my own power. And,
and you're
we
telling
call it
yourself that it's okay. Like I can. It's
exactly
okay
giving
that I'm
myself
doing
permission to be
it.
my full being as a physical being, which
Right.
I think for women, especially as I said, in my generation in particular, where we were never allowed to really have any expression physically, it was quite an extraordinary experience. And out of it, I started to write about it and really learn more about the female experience. Then I went back to college in my 50s, got my degree, then went on and got a master's degree in my 50s. And what I was studying ended up doing a thesis on the gender binary, how the notions of what is male and what is female, and then I examine women's boxing and say, well, how does that fit in?
Right.
Because it's constantly in and out. Most of us are raised on the idea that boxing is this hyper masculine sport. Well, guess
Right.
what? Women do it too, and they do it really, really well.
Yes. Yes, they
And
do.
the boxing body has nothing to do with gender. And a case in point is, I think it was in 2011, the then head of the International Boxing Amateur Boxing Association, Dr. Wu, was saying that he wanted to change the uniforms for the amateur boxing. He wanted women to start wearing skirts. Of course, amateur women were like, "Hell no, we're not going." And a reporter asked him, Michael Rivest, was a boxing writer for Ring Magazine, and then had a column up in Albany. He asked him, he said, "Why are you doing this?" And
Right.
Dr. Wu said, "Well, the problem is when people watch boxing on television, they all have the helmets on and they can't tell if it's a girl or a boy." Now think about that. Think about that. To me, what that said to me was that women's boxing had evolved to the point where their boxing body, how they move in space, was exactly the same
Same.
as their brothers in the ring.
Yes. Yeah.
And
If you
what
can't tell the
Dr. Wu,
difference.
yeah, what Dr. Wu was expressing was this construct that people watching were uncomfortable with the idea that gender wasn't playing a part
Right.
because they knew girls were boxing, right?
Right.
Women are in the elites. This was a
Yeah.
year before the Olympics.
Right.
And that was the level of discomfort. What happened on the uniform side was they didn't make it mandatory, but each national boxing organization had the option to mandate that women wear skirts. So in the United States, they wear shorts. In
Yeah.
Poland in 2012, they were wearing skirts.
Skirts.
So
I mean,
fascinating.
that's like a whole topic in itself, isn't it? About the
It,
whole general neutral thing and
oh, give
the
me a break.
bias and trying to make everybody. It's just we're all one. Like I hope I'm alive to see the day when boxing just becomes boxing. I highly
Yeah,
doubt it, but when we can just say boxing and not separate the two, because we're all the same. Um, and I've always told people I feel like women have to work twice as hard as the men, even back in the day, even today, still. You know, women are mothers. The guys can easily just go off for camp and like they're just focused.
yeah,
I mean, there's very few women, maybe more so some today, that can just train and not work. But I know everybody in my generation and past beyond that, all the way up till recently. I mean, you worked a full-time job, you trained on the side, you're also a mother and a wife, and you just do it all. So I think it's harder. Women work harder than the men have
Yeah,
to.
I've as I said, I'm at a Gleason's gym. That's my home gym, and I have
Okay.
the good fortune to have stablemates like Heather Hardy and Alicia Ashley. And Heather Hardy is a perfect case in point. She has
Yes.
never, ever in her entire career had a camp that wasn't her stealing 4 or 5 extra hours a day from her very busy life being a single mother,
Yeah.
raising a daughter, having to work full time, as a trainer in the gym, which is it's not a 7 hour day, it's not an 8 hour
No.
day. It's you show up at 6 o'clock for your 6 o'clock client, and you're there at 9 o'clock at night for your 9 o'clock client.
Yes.
And she would steal those extra 4 hours a day, sparring in between training, doing the all the road work over the Brooklyn Bridge in between training.
Yeah.
And she's 40 years old. She's a champion. She has a
Hmm.
fight coming up. Guess what she's doing? She's stealing those hours out of her
Yep.
day.
You have to. You have
That's
to.
it.
I mean, I can
That's
remember
camp.
when I was doing it at the end, even more so at the end. But I mean, I worked a 9 to 5, got off work, picked up the kids, the husband. We went to the gym. We're
Right.
there for like 6 to 9,
Hmm.
6 to 8, 6 to 9, doing our work. And the kids lived in the gym. My kids grew up in the gym. My oldest ones, um, they just stablemates helped out with the kids. That's just what you did.
Exactly. Yeah.
We all were a family, and they just helped out, and they were there with me in training. And then we went home and grabbed dinner and went to bed and did it all over again. So it's not easy. It's definitely not an easy road for anybody for that matter. But I think
No.
most of the men leave or they're in a training camp like off to themselves for those four to
Oh
eight
yeah.
weeks or
Can you
whatever.
imagine if you had had 6 weeks to go train?
I can't even imagine what I kind of. I mean, I think I was always in pretty decent shape, but if I had 6 weeks of just training, I'd be a whole nother
Exactly.
person. I would have been a whole nother person. So yeah, that's a good one. Women's boxing channel pipes in. Hey guys, how are you? He says, oh, he wants to probably for you. Tough question. So what
It's
about
not a tough question. I see it. And
oh,
then the
you don't think
question
okay.
is, that she failed a PET test and blamed it on a period, and it's actually it's the truth. She was prescribed a certain type of she has a tendency to have really difficulty with her menstruation cycle.
Yep.
It's on record. There's nothing mysterious about that. She was prescribed a medication to take for the third week when that happens. What she didn't understand were that one of the ingredients was actually part of the PED test.
Okay.
She ended up finding out after the test. That's an education process. She certainly apologized for that. There's nothing nefarious or underhanded about it. That's all it was.
No,
It's a
I mean
fact of life.
I've never had the pleasure to meet Heather Hardy in person, but I have spoken to her, and no, I wouldn't call foul play whatsoever at all in that scenario.
No, and
Heather's
the
a
thing
very good
is,
person.
it was a good education because PEDS testing for those drug tests that are something new for a lot of women boxers.
Okay.
And there's also changes as to what the panel of tests are going to be because there's a lot of changing rules and regulations. Some are
Right.
more stringent than others. And in
Mhm.
her case, she didn't really, I mean, she's the first to admit it. I didn't educate myself enough. Her team didn't educate themselves enough. They just didn't understand enough about the
Right.
complexities of
The
what they were
medication.
doing.
Right.
She accepted the responsibility for that and certainly will never have that happen again because she has gotten educated. But it was an important lesson for all
For
female
all
fighters
females,
in
because probably
particular
none of them knew. Yeah.
because the main things, anabolic steroids, all of those things, but these little other things that may be
They're
slipped
hidden
into
inside. Yeah,
a
into something
general
else.
medication was
Yeah.
something that she hadn't been educated enough about, and needed to do that, and will do that in the future, and is doing that.
Yes. Yeah. So of course, she just said the team obviously didn't educate enough as well. In light of that, what do you think about Connor Ben's case?
I don't know enough about the medications that I know he tested positive. I believe that was for an illegal steroid, but I don't know enough about that particular case to opine. But I think that that was a rather known substance, but I don't know enough, so I'm going to not be able to react
Yeah,
to that. I
we're
do
gonna
know
take
a lot
a
about the
on that one.
Heather
Yeah,
party
we're gonna.
case because we covered it at the time.
Okay, got you. All right. So we kind of went back to the beginning. We got the start of Melissa's process and journey with boxing. So then next, I want to talk about the first book, A History of Women's Boxing. Can you tell us like how you kind of got into how you got into the process of writing it and why? What was like the inspiration behind the book? And can you give the readers who haven't, or the listeners who haven't read it, like a little bit about the book in case they want to go buy it?
Sure, absolutely. So as I had mentioned, I had gone back to school to get a master's degree, and as part of that process, I wrote a thesis on women's boxing as a test of the boundaries between of the gender binary, and how that has been very changeable, almost decade by decade.
Right.
And as part of that, one of the things that I was very difficult in writing the thesis was that there was so little written about the sport. There are a few really wonderful academics who have done research essentially starting in the 90s. So just like around the time that I was writing this, they had maybe been in it a few years before. I was writing my thesis in 2000, began it in 2010, finished it in 2012. There were maybe 3 or 4 academics, one in particular, a woman named Jennifer Hargraves in the United Kingdom, who did wonderful work documenting the early years of women in the sport, literally 300 years ago in the 1720s.
Nice.
So that kind of gave me some places to start. There are a few other academics in the United States, Canada, and in the United Kingdom, but there was no history of the sport, literally. Right. And when I went through, I don't know, like bookshelves worth of boxing books, and there would be like one mention of one boxer, this much on Christy like Martin. Little... That's it. It's like it never existed before Christy Martin showed up on a card with Dierdorff-Millbrook.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of original research. I pulled things out of the air, found them, and then was actually approached by a publisher, Rowman and Littlefield, who eventually published my book, to say, listen, we're expanding our titles for women's boxing, and we would like to offer you the opportunity to write a history of the sport. And I just went, oh my God, what an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So it took me 2 years to do, or a year and a half, really, of intense writing and researching. And I was able to really avail myself of a lot of online newspaper research, digital research opportunities. From the United Kingdom, literally going back to the 1700s, you can find newspaper stories.
Nice.
So I was able to do a lot of original research by combing through these records and archives, and wove a story of women in the sport, as I said, that essentially began in the 1720s, when a man named James Figg essentially invented boxing as we know it. It was called prize fighting, and they would have a short little wooden sword in one hand called a cudgel, and a fist in the other. And the fist would hold like a pound or something, some amount of money, and they would have to hold it in their fist. They'd have the sword, and they would sword fight and hit each other to try to get them to either knock them out or get them to drop the coin so they lose. And women began to do that as well. And they came up with a concept of rounds.
Okay.
And sort of, it wasn't squared off, was typically in a in a space. They were like amphitheaters that were developed, or in fairgrounds, and it was kind of more like a circle, and they would fight within the circle.
Okay.
And women became quite popular performers of this. It was in theaters and basically open air theaters and on fairgrounds. Interestingly, in England, the concept of boxing shows and fairgrounds went on for another 200 years or 300, almost 300 years. So the boxing booth kind of idea.
Right.
So women started boxing in the 1720s, and my book talks about the ups and downs of women's participation in the sport, both as practitioners, as performers, but also as managers and referees and judges and all the other ancillary roles that women have come to play. Even as people who observed the fights, there were periods of time when it was illegal for women to attend fights. And then there would be periods of time when women were encouraged to attend fights.
Right.
So my approach to the book was to write about sort of decade by decade, century by century, pretty much, and look at the culture, where women's roles were in the culture, and then how boxing expressed that.
Okay. Okay. Those of you that want to purchase the book, I believe Amazon, right, is where you.
Yes, it's called The
is it on
History
your
of
website?
Women's Boxing. It's available on Amazon.com. You can get it as hardcover, softcover, or as an ebook.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Women's boxing. Okay, thanks. No, don't worry about deviating. That's what we're here for, to answer questions live. We'll come back to the question we're working on. You can ask whatever you like. That's why we're here. Angie, you know Angie Passmore.
Mm-hmm. Hi,
From
Angie.
Inducted. Yes. Melissa, love your history. I started boxing at 40. Thank you for the backstory with Heather. I didn't know what actually happened. And she is one of my, and I got something in front of my thing. She is one of my favorite fighters, going back to school at 50. You're such a strong woman and very inspiring. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experience. So do I, Angie.
Thank you. No, going back to school in my 50s was the best thing I ever did for myself. It was like a dangling participle not having ever actually completed my BA. I had more credits than I needed, just never strung them together. And getting my BA at the age of 56 and getting my master's degree at the age of 59 were extraordinary. And I never felt so proud of myself, to tell you the truth,
Nice.
than that experience.
Yeah, I know several people that have gone back late, and they're just the feel of joy and like kind of like relief that they feel because they finally did it. Like, it's never too late. I always tell people that. It doesn't matter what you want to do, it's never too late. You can do anything if you just put your mind to it and work hard at it.
Yep.
So next thing I want to talk about is your blog, Girlboxing. Tell people where they can watch it, like what to expect on the blog, when it airs, things like that, for those of, that are new in here and aren't familiar with your blog.
Sure. So I started my girlboxing.org blog in 2010. And it was essentially a way of me to write about women's boxing. There was not a lot out there, and I was very much engaged in writing my thesis at the time. So I wanted to practice writing because I wanted to feel confidence in that process. And I was also, there weren't a lot of voices about women's boxing in 2010, 2011, 2013, 14. There was Sue Fox on WBAN.
There still really is.
Archive Network. She's now in her coming to her 25th year. There were very, very few websites. So I started the blog. It was more of a personal journey in terms of some of it was about my journey in the sport. A lot of it was reportage. And because of my unique opportunity to meet professional and amateur fighters through Gleason's Gym, I was able to take advantage of that and do a lot of interviews with boxers over the years. So, all the local girls, local women's boxing people from Brooklyn and around New York. So I was able to do interviews and videos that I pushed out as content. Over the years, things have evolved, and now, another hat I wear in my life is that I am a caregiver for my husband, who has dementia. He has something called frontotemporal dementia. It's less known than Alzheimer's. He's in his mid 70s now, otherwise quite healthy. But it's very challenging for him to be able to negotiate life on a day to day basis.
Hmm.
He's often confused and doesn't necessarily know where he is in time and space. So I spend my time, most of the time, caring for him and making sure he stays safe, and try to make him feel that he has community and a place to be in the world and still has value and meaning. So I write about the caregiver experience a lot now, to try to sort of take my experiences, the highs, the lows, the difficulties, and put out content that's, I hope, helpful to the community of caregivers and folks who may have a father or a mother with dementia, or a sibling or a spouse, or some other family member or close friend, and to demystify it a little bit, and to realize that there is a community out there for you, that you're never alone with what
Right.
you're experiencing. And that the idea of, I kind of borrow it a little bit from boxing. Just like you have a boxing community, you have a boxing family,
Yeah.
there's also families for other aspects of your life, and caregiving is one of them for me. And it's been a really rewarding and fulfilling experience to be able to share my stories of my experiences in that realm, and what my husband is going through, so that
Right.
it can be a touch point for others who may be in a similar
Yeah.
situation, who don't feel as capable of reaching out.
Yeah. I was definitely going to make sure we talked about that. My mother has early onset dementia. Um, and it's very hard, and it's a very touchy subject for me. Um, because my mom's my best friend. So it's like I can't really talk to her now on the phone. She doesn't remember to call. I'll call. We'll talk for a few minutes, and then if you ask any questions, though, she immediately puts my dad on, because she doesn't know how to answer the questions, and she feels
Yeah.
embarrassed because still knows that it's happening right now. So then she gets embarrassed. So she'll just get off. So that's a very, very touchy subject for me. It's very hard to me to deal with. My husband also, my mother-in-law and his aunt also have dementia, and he is the guardian for both of those. So
Mm.
we've kind of got it on both sides there. But yes, and I applaud you for that. His mother stayed with us for a while, and it's very, very difficult, to one, deal with it all for somebody that, so you care about and you love, and two, it's very hard to, um, just see them in that state. So, yeah, I definitely want to make sure we touched on that and talked about that, because that's so awesome that you're doing that, and helping other people like learn about it. And there's so much out there that you can learn about and read about, and things that you can still do to try to help stimulate the brain, and all these things. But yes, my mom. It's been about a year and a half, maybe going on 2 years since it first started. So it's getting worse. So yeah, it's. I used to talk to my mom like every day, and now it's like I get 5 minutes here and there, just because she doesn't know what to say when you start talking about. You can talk about everyday things like the weather, but if you're like, oh, what'd you guys do, or where are you guys at, or because they travel now, they travel in their camper. They're both retired. Where you been? What have you been doing? I don't know. And then she's like, Rick, what have we been doing? Where are we at? Like, and then, so then I told my dad, I kind of made a joke with him like about 6 months ago. I said, I think I've talked to you more in the last year than I've talked to you my whole life. My dad, he was an over the road truck driver when I was growing up. So he was gone all week, home like on the weekends. So we were always with my mom. And like I said, I used to talk to her daily, like every day, probably a couple times a day. And now I told him, I said, I seriously think I have spoken to you more the last year than I've spoken to you in my entire life. And we both got a chuckle out of it, but it's probably true, really, actually. So I mean, I still call and we still talk, but it's just not the same conversation. So I definitely applaud you for doing that because I know it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, it is, and I think that what I'm what I struggle with and what I'm trying to do for myself is not to normalize the disease. The disease is horrible,
Yes.
but to normalize the experience that he can come with me where if he's able to come with me, he can come with me.
Yeah.
He may sit there and be like a fidgety 3-year old sometimes, jumping up and down, or filled with a little bit of anxiety, and he's sitting there going, no, it's okay, in the way of a 3-year old. And it's a little bit bizarre to be calming your husband of 25 years who's 75 and treating him like
Yeah.
your 3-year old. But
Yeah.
it's fine, and there are stages to it and stages to experiencing it. And in my case, we have a very young daughter. She's only 23. So helping her through that process and doing it as a family is also difficult, but necessary for us
Yes.
to move forward. And I really understand how painful this is for you, and how difficult, and that how you have to go through a process of your own sort of under evaluating what your relationship is and has been and why and all of those things. And
Yeah.
you're also grieving the loss of a person that isn't there anymore, and it's very
Right.
difficult. So
Yeah.
I don't want to stress you right now. We'll go
I'm
back to
trying.
boxing.
Everybody,
But
I'm so sorry. I'm like sitting here trying so hard not to like let the tears flow right now because it's a very, like I
we
said,
can go talk about boxing.
it's a very, very touchy subject for me because my mom, that was my ride or die. I mean, she still is. She's my ride or die. She's always been my number one fan. When my dad
Yeah.
was over the road, she was at every game I ever played through school. I played all the sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just very close. And like I said, she's still there. Like we're not that far
Yeah.
into it yet, but her memory is definitely going
Yeah.
quicker than it was a year ago. So
I hear you.
I just pray that I don't, that I don't, it doesn't get to the point where she doesn't remember us and the kids. Um, Everything else I don't care so much about, but and I know it'll happen one day, but that's the day I dread is the day she doesn't
I
know.
will say one thing to you: never get ahead of where you are.
Yeah.
That's as a caregiver, as a child as a person who has a relationship with a person in dementia. You just don't know. So be where you are. If ever you're going to learn that lesson of being present and being where
Right.
you are, do that now. And what I have learned from my husband is actually he can't cope with the fact that he doesn't know things, or so he doesn't worry about it.
No.
He's
No,
only where he is in the moment,
right.
and therefore he is quite joyful, and I would say happier than he was before, because he just
He
is
just
like,
doesn't.
I
No
don't know.
stress, no worry, like just happy. Yeah, because he doesn't process it enough to think of it in a bad or a negative way. So
Exactly. It is what it is. Sometimes it's frustrating. But what I am learning, as I said, is not to get ahead of myself. I've got to plan and think, but I don't think about, well, what about next year? I have no clue what next year is going to be. Let me get through this week, and then we're there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I totally agree. Women's Boxing Channel says, I see it going on to great, great things. Some think it will flatline in a few years. I don't know. What do you say? What were we talking about that he's talking about? What were you talking about, Women's Boxing Channel? I must have missed your message before. Let me know because I don't remember what we were talking about what were we talking about before that? We were talking about women's
Well,
your
just I
book.
think about the sport and how the sport was growing, and I guess he's asking us. I think
Do we
his
think it's
question
gonna
is,
flatline?
hey, if we look at boxing now, it's really great. Is it going to flat? What do we project for the future?
Read the previous comment.
Oh,
Well,
read I don't know.
Let me see.
I'm lost.
I see it going on to great, great things. Is that the one you're talking about? And then it goes, some think it will flatline. Unless I'm missing something, Women's Boxing Channel. That's the only 3 messages I got over here. You'll have to retype it. I'm so sorry, hon. Retype it for me.
But Mabel,
Uh,
if we do, from my perspective, if we look at where we are with women's boxing now, which is, giving women an opportunity to actually um, earn earn a living, some
some,
few,
very few.
still few, but more.
Yes.
Um, most still have to work. Listen, Jessica McCaskill was working till a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
She was still working while she was undisputed. So,
Yeah, she was.
Clarissa doesn't have to. Katie doesn't have to. Amanda doesn't have to. Not sure about Chantel. Not sure about
Yeah, and
Samantha.
I don't know about Baumgartner Mayer.
Yeah,
They probably might still work, maybe. I don't know
yeah.
if they're that they might be up there enough. I don't know.
It's somewhat. I think they're pretty much able to box. And the thing with Mayer and Baumgartner even is that they've been able to capitalize and do announcing. And I'm sure when Mayer announces for ESPN, she's getting paid, so she's gigging, if you will. It's still within the realm of boxing, but
Yeah.
she's kind of, it's actually quite smart because she's quite good on the air, and as is Tasha Jonas, who's been doing on air stuff, commentary. Kylie Reese has been doing on air commentary,
Yeah.
and they're doing it quite well, and so it's giving them the potential for some avenues down the line to kind of
Yes.
transition into being commentators and
Yeah,
earning a
that's
living
what I
that way.
wanted to do when I retired was commentating, but we didn't have those opportunities back then.
No, they really weren't there.
No,
I mean, this
none.
is so new.
Thank you, Eddie. I don't see WBC. I do not have that message that starts out so good to see the. I don't have that message. So if you want to copy and paste it back in the comments, somehow we missed that one. It's not over here. Okay, so moving on. You also are on War Room with Chris Baldwin and Eddie Goldman. Tell us about
Well,
that.
yeah,
It's
we
podcast, right?
started like about, I guess it's about a year and a half. It was really, I think Eddie and Chris were doing a show. What we were, the idea of it is sort of to be an alternative to the usual sports boxing stuff,
Right?
which is kind of towing the line. If a lot of shows toe the line of the various networks and so on, and we wanted to look at it a little differently. And frankly, we're all a bunch of lefties, so we wanted to have a different focus, which is for us sports justice, and women's boxing is very much in that role. But we wanted to dive a little deeper into issues, what the issues are for gay athletes, women who are gay versus women who are straight, and the issues that they face as
Right.
an out gay woman who is masculine facing versus one who's femme facing. I mean, these kinds of issues are things that we want to talk about. We also were diving a lot into or have been diving a lot into the issues with the new International Boxing Association, the amateur organization that is under a man named Viktor Kremlev, and their ongoing fights with the international boxing, with the International Olympic Committee.
Okay.
During the 2016 Olympics, there was a lot of corruption in the judging at the
Yeah.
Olympics.
Right.
And a report came out, and so we amplified that a lot. We interviewed folks about that. We also were looking at the criminality undercutting some of the male boxing, in particular Daniel Kinahan, who's a crime lord, originally from Ireland, and had been holed up in Dubai. Now he's on like the Interpol most wanted list, and his assets were frozen in the United States. And anyone associated with him has been kicked out of the United States, or had their assets frozen. Even I think a week ago or so, MTK Global, which was spun out of an organization he originally started, shut down in the United States because of the financial implications. There's a lot of money laundering going on, sports betting, all sorts of really nefarious stuff. So that's what we talk about, and we talk about the stories that a lot of other folks don't necessarily cover.
Right.
And as I said, we do it from an angle of sports justice, and try not to pull punches. We look at things beyond just boxing itself, but we
Right.
also have a really warm-hearted space for women's boxing and try to amplify fighters who may not get seen or heard, and really talk about the continuing pay equity issues, the continuing issues of access to
Yeah.
promotion. I mean, it's a scandal that in this country, any woman cannot get on a PBC card. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which means women are not on Showtime anymore. What the hell, Stephen Espinoza? I mean, what?
Right.
There were 2 female fights last year. What? Because they had 2 cards that weren't PBC. What the
Right.
hell?
Yeah.
So,
Why?
So we talk about that. We talk about, the what's happening in the UK versus here, looking at things
Yeah.
in Mexico and Argentina, where are the other centers of women's boxing.
Right. Right.
And have fun.
Yeah, and have fun doing it,
We
right?
have fun.
I mean, that's what it is. You talk the talk and walk the walk and expose the truth, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. That's what we need. That's what we need. Women's boxing channel. I got your number 2 and your number 3. I still don't see your number 1 message. I don't know what's happening. Eric, can you see his message that I'm missing? Let me know, because I don't see it.
Yeah, number 1.
Oh, he's been looking. Okay, you don't see it either. He don't see it. Okay, women's boxing channel. I got number 2 and number 3. I do not have the first part still. I don't know why. And my lovely assistant backstage can't see it either. So I'm not sure why that first message is not coming through. But we're not trying to ignore your question. I just don't see it. Okay, so from there. So the latest appearance, of course, we kind of started off and touched with it in the beginning. Your last motivational speaking was at the 9th annual International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame induction.
Right.
That was at the Orleans Hotel and Casino last October, which is where we had the lovely opportunity to meet in person for the first time. Yay. So I guess tell everybody about your role with the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame and the events and everything that takes place with that.
Well, I've had the honor to be on the board with Sue Fox since our first Women's Boxing Hall of Fame in 2014. This is the brainchild of Sue Fox. And to give it a little context and history, in 2014, the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York, did not induct women. That did not happen until 2020.
Yep.
So in 2014, really 2012, 2013, Sue started saying, we should have an award. Now there's regional, there are state halls of fame for boxing. There are counties, there are states, there are cities. It depends on where you are and how important boxing is to your community or to the community or the state. And Sue said, but there's nothing for women. And we said, you know what? You're absolutely right. So she put together a board of a few people and we banded together and really Sue did most of the planning and we located it in Florida at the National Golden Gloves, which were still being held. The National Women's Golden Gloves, they were led by Bonnie Canino, that brilliant, wonderful fighter, Bonnie Canino, and her partner, Yvonne Reese, both of whom have been inducted to the Women's Hall of Fame.
Yes, they have.
And we put together an event that first year in 2014 that coincided with her National Golden Gloves. And we had the event in the afternoon, right where the rings were,
Yeah.
And then in the night we would watch the boxing. And that first year, we inducted Christy Martin and Lucia Riker and Regina Hamlick and a few others and Barbara Buttrick. And it was sort of like the greatest hits of women's boxing.
The greatest hits of women's boxing come together.
One of the most remarkable things is that, as I said, it was the National Golden Gloves. So there were fighters like Marlena Esparza and Christina Cruz who were still competing in the amateurs,
Yeah.
as was Clarissa Shields, although she wasn't competing in the National Golden Gloves. So she came because she was there to support her teammates at the
Right.
Golden Gloves. And she brought her gold medal with her from the Olympics. And she came up and she met our incoming induction class. I'm telling you, there wasn't a dry eye in the house among the women who were being inducted, because there's this beautiful, she was then what, 18, 19 years old, 19-year-old young woman who with a gold medal from the Olympics, something they never in their wildest imagination as professionals ever thought could be achieved.
Yeah, for
And
boxing.
you're so proud of her. So very proud of her. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah, I could totally imagine just I don't know, just this excitement of I mean, everybody when the Olympics first happened, I don't know any female that wasn't just so like relieved that it finally happened. Because women have been fighting for Olympics in boxing for I don't even know how far back.
Listen, when the amateurs in the United States of America were not legalized to the mid 1990s.
Yeah, 1993. I had Dakota Stone
Dallas
on
Malloy
last week. Yeah,
Dallas Malloy. Now there had been a few instances where state organizations who are not necessarily affiliated with the AAU, which was the amateur organization that sort of spearheaded that level of competition in the United States prior to the USA Boxing. It kind of slipped through, and some Golden Gloves in New Mexico might have a girl who boxed or pretended to be a boy who boxed and got away with it and then got caught and kicked out. Yep. That was it until Dallas Malloy.
Yeah. So I had her on the show last week. She was phenomenal. Like she's a phenomenal woman.
She was great.
Yes.
And if you look at, so then it's literally 19 years later, women are in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have nationals till 1998, 1999. And then there was the first international competition with different organizations from around the world. It was illegal in most places in the world.
Yes. Yes.
So extraordinary to think
baby
even
steps,
in 12 years what happened from 2000 to 2012.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Baby steps. We got to take baby steps. We're getting there.
Yes, absolutely.
We're definitely getting there. So yeah, I mean the next year's event for the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame, for everybody that's in here that has not, if you don't follow WBAN.com, Sue Fox is like the most amazing woman you'll ever meet. She does so much for all of us, from the amateurs all the way through my pros. I can remember the first time that I spoke with Sue and found the website when I was fighting amateur. I mean, she covers it all. So if there's anything you want to know about women's boxing, everybody go check out WBAN.com. Sue Fox, she's on Facebook. I mean, she's on all of them, but go to the website. There's pretty much nothing you can't find on there. Yes, she is a legend, 100%. Amazing woman.
And a boxer herself. She started out doing competitive karate and then became a boxer in the late 70s. She was one of the first female licensed female boxers in the West.
I was so happy when I brought the belt. I brought my belt to the inductions, and Sue was like, "Oh my gosh, like I want to take a picture with you, but I want to hold the belt because I never got to have one." I said, "Girl, you can hold it all night. You can carry it all night long with you." And I think I just saw somebody made a belt for her recently, right? I saw it on a picture.
Well, yeah, Stephen Blay, who's a very legendary referee and coach, with and does a lot of WBC bouts and work, presented it to her. Yeah. We had actually inducted him. I want to say 2020 for as a non-boxer category. He's a really wonderful, fabulous human and extraordinary advocate for women in the sport. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was there last year, right?
Yeah, he was. He was definitely
Yeah.
there, and we wanted to invite him up to the stage, but for those of you who were there, it went a little long. So
It did. That's why you know, everybody, Sue, she's just said, well, thank you so much. Like, your speech was amazing. And I said, well, I mean, I didn't have like a 10-minute speech or anything, but I missed quite a bit of stuff I was going to mention in my speech just because I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go up here and thank everybody and make it real simple because I was one of the later ones to
yeah, I
go. And
know we
I could
felt
just
so
feel the
bad.
tension. I could feel the tension in the room, that it was getting late. And I was like, I'm not even going to, like, I had it wrote out and I was just going to read it. And I'm like, no, we're just going to do the main points, like exactly who I need to thank and what I need to say. And we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah, next year we've really been working hard to time it out a little better
Yeah.
because we want everybody to have the opportunity to speak, but we can't give everybody 20 minutes, so we'll be there till the next day. So
yeah, it got pretty late.
3-minute rounds.
3-minute rounds, 3-minute rounds. But this
No,
year,
we're excited because we're actually going to have 2 days. This is our
yes,
10th anniversary, and we're going to have 2 days of events. We're going to have an afternoon event where folks will have the opportunity to meet all the fighters, do the pictures,
that's what I'm looking forward to.
and you know, just give out some award, do the raffling, and just have a lot of fun
yes,
for that experience. So we're gonna do all of that and really have a great time in the afternoon, and then the following night on the 7th, we'll have our formal induction ceremony and dinner, and hope to have it really be an exciting event for everyone and
yes.
have it move along a little bit quicker than last time.
Yeah, I know.
But not cut anyone off or anything like that. Just
No,
have a
you
great
definitely don't
time.
want to do that. Yeah, I mean, you want
Yeah,
them to have their moment to shine. Like, I mean, I wanted my moment, but
absolutely
I just
important.
the the key points that I had. I think that was really all. The rest of it was just kind of like a backstory of me, which everybody already knew that was there anyway. So it didn't really matter that I skipped that part. But yes, I know I was laughing because I didn't really eat because I spent so much time trying to make sure that I took pictures with everybody that was there. And I got autographs with all the fighters that were there. And I kind of giggled with Sue later. I said, I think I almost got a picture with almost everybody that was there, but I didn't get to speak to anybody that was there. Like, it was just like, oh my gosh, Christy Martin, can I have a photo? Oh my gosh, Martha, can I have a photo? Like, oh my God. Like, so I was just, I mean, I got photos, but I love that she's adding the extra day for this year because we can actually have a conversation with some of our people we looked
Exactly.
up to. There were so many people there that I looked up to that came from before me, that I
Absolutely.
would have loved to just like ask some questions and, you know, talk a little bit, but there just
Well,
wasn't time for that. I didn't even eat my food because I was trying to just talk to people.
I think what we have, and this is again all kudos to Sue, is
Yes,
building
Sue.
this notion of a community of it's a community of people who support each other. I know we talked about community earlier on in our
Yes,
call, and it's really important. I'm like, look, I love the fact that Canastota is recognizing women. There's 2 amazing women being inducted this year, Alicia Ashley and Laura Serrano. It's wonderful, but the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame is a place for us. It's
yes,
a place where we can celebrate ourselves,
yes,
meaning the community that is not only the women who box like you, Brooke, but all of those who support it, all of those who
yes.
advocate for the
The
sport,
behind the
all
scenes people.
the
Yes,
promoters, the managers, the referees, as I said, the judges, the commissioners,
yes,
Jill Diamond at WBC and all that she does in support and
yes,
furtherance of women in the sport. Not
yes,
only, showing up at, being the manager and, being the official at title fights, but all the stuff she does behind the scenes, how she is sitting there and supporting amateur sports at a time when just the participation in the Olympics itself is being threatened. So it's really important to have that kind of advocacy. So what I feel about the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame is It is a community of people that have the opportunity to meet and come together. And as you said, adding that extra day gives
Yeah.
us some time to just relax. We're not all tense from the
Yeah.
event itself.
We're
And
not
in a
rushed.
way, it's a chance to kind of break the ice a little, so that when we do come together for the event, we're already good friends. We've
Yes.
already had this other thing that we share. So it kind of get to the shorthand of the experience and be able to really cheer each other. And that's what it's all about, is
Yes.
giving that support to each other for their endeavors, for persevering, and for continuing to persevere.
Yes.
For those who are active fighters that still have to put up with all that nightmarish crap on YouTube and Twitter and everything else, it's disgusting. Get
Yes.
a life, people. You don't
Yeah.
have to denigrate people. You don't have to trash talk them or anything else.
No.
Enough.
Yeah, just stop all that stuff and just, pat some people on the back for all their hard work and accomplishments.
Exactly.
Anybody that steps in the ring deserves respect because they got in the ring. I know one of my biggest pet peeve when I was fighting was people that would come up to me and say negative things. And I'm like, have you even sparred? Like, have you even trained?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever even been in a ring? Like, do you know what it feels like? So don't talk to me.
Yeah, listen, women
If
die
you
in the
don't
ring.
know, like if you haven't experienced it, don't talk to me because you don't know
Yeah.
shit. You don't know what you're talking about if you've never done it yourself.
We have a young Mexican fighter who died in the ring in Canada last year.
Yeah.
We have a Mexican fighter who went down and went into a coma after fighting Hannah Rankin
Yeah.
in the ring.
Yep.
Went through the full fight, ended up in a coma.
Yeah.
So
I saw that. Yeah.
it's not a joke.
No, it's
Women
not.
who come through the ropes are there to perform a sport, give it their best, and may not come out of it
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
it's boxing.
Exactly.
And that respect must be given.
100%, from everybody. And
Yep.
for those of you that are watching the show, if you're not an actual athlete and you haven't actually done it, think about that the next time you want to give somebody that's doing it a negative comment or try to tear them down and tell them they're not good or whatever the case may be, because you can't even get up enough guts to get in there yourself and give it a try. So just sit back and watch and enjoy the show, and maybe next time just give somebody some props or just don't say anything at all, because we don't need your negative comments. We've been through enough. We know if we had a good night or a bad night or whatever the case may be, or if we made some mistakes. So we definitely don't need you guys throwing that in their faces, because they're already beating themselves up at that point. So we don't need that extra throw in there. Just keep that to yourself. Let's see. Women's Boxing Channel says, what do you think about Liam Smith's homophobic outbursts?
Reprehensible. What's to say? Don't do it. You can go to a lot of places, but you're going to do that? And then there was a fan, some boxing idiot, was throwing epithets at Conor Benn before the fight. I mean, it was just disgraceful. Get out of there.
Yeah,
Done.
Very. Thank you, Eric, for putting up. Everybody, if you check out in the chat that's in here, if you are interested in purchasing Melissa's book, he put the link to the Amazon to the book so you can check it all out. Is it woke or is it salient? Well, I think are you talking about the same thing, right? It's also in the description. It's also in the description down below. He just informed me. So give Eric a big pat on the back because he's doing his job. He's doing it right today. He's got it everywhere. He's ahead of me. That's for sure. Oh, so I see that's you. I'm like, he's telling me something?
No, I'm
else?
saying thank you. Listen, one thing about boxing, whatever you're in, it's all a labor of love. You don't get money. You get labor of love.
Exactly.
So thank you. Still paying off the editor.
Exactly. So I know you are currently now writing another book that's set to release next year. Can you tell us what that one is about?
Yes, I am writing a book that is taking an in-depth look at the last 10 years, basically from the 2012 Olympics to now. I've sort of identified 3 separate eras within 10 years, which is, if you think about it, from the Olympics 2012 to 2016, we have the Olympics. It's like, great, everybody's going to get on TV and be all famous. And guess what?
Yes.
There was still no women on television in the United States. There was still no women on television in the UK boxing. Nothing happened. 2016, and people like Claressa Shields and Katie Taylor, who are now our huge mega stars, made the determination there was no way they were leaving the amateurs to cross over into pro sports. There was nothing for them as professionals in 2012 to leave the amateurs. So I'm going to take an in-depth look at that, take a look at the fighters who were fighting, sort of the end of the era of women who came up in the sport only as professionals, really never had that much of an opportunity as amateurs, and talking through, what that was like for them as they were doing their careers. One interesting little fact that I'll talk about is that the night that Claressa Shields won her second Olympic gold medal in August of 2016 was the night that Heather Hardy fought Shalito Vincent, a local fighter from New England, for a WBC silver belt. She was on a PBC card. That fight was on a PBC card, one of the few that had women. And it was an Errol Spence earlier in his career. He was the headliner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was shown at an outdoor theater in Coney Island. That's where the boxing show was. Every single ticket was sold either by Heather or Shalito. Literally had busloads of people coming down from New England to watch the fight.
Yeah.
And it was the first time a women's fight was live streamed from PBC. And one of the few that ever happened. I think it's only happened a couple of times since.
Yes, only a few.
Also Heather Hardy. So that was the same night. And Heather won that fight. It was a very tough, hard-fought fight with a lot of emotion.
They're both great fighters.
And after the fight, as she was, thanking the crowd, she said, Claressa Shields won her second gold medal tonight. And she burst into tears. That's the impact of the Olympics. So I want to talk about that. I'm then going to talk about what I'm going to call this transition period, 2017 to kind of 2019, where you have these Olympic stars crossing over and starting to be professionals and really changing the name of the game.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about the fact that HBO had their first female bout, by accident. They had Cecilia Brækhus fighting for undisputed. They kept her on the card. HBO had never broadcast women before in all of their history.
No.
The main event, which I can't remember the guys that were supposed to fight on that card, was canceled. They said, well, okay, what the heck? And they made the Brækhus fight the main event. So that was huge. So I want to talk about those kind of pivotal things. And the experience of, Claressa Shields, Katie Taylor, those kind of folks coming up and changing the landscape of Showtime in terms of featuring Claressa, the rise of Eddie Hearn and Match from Boxing and their support of women's boxing. And then, of course, COVID happens. So the next thing will be 2020, the last part of 2020 to 2022, talk about the COVID story, how it just killed boxing. But at the same time, women became the stars. I don't know if you remember the
Uh-oh.
That says,
oops. Oh, you're back.
Okay, sorry about that. Natasha Jonas, Terry Harper fight, the first summer of COVID in 2020. They had this amazing 10-round battle on DAZN, and it really was the fight of the summer. It kind of people were so starved to watch boxing. They watched that fight and went,
Yes.
"Oh my God, women can friggin' box."
Yeah.
So there's a
Like,
lot of
yeah,
all that
finally.
change from them, all that momentum. The age of the undisputeds, the age of the mega fights. Talk about
Yes.
Taylor Serrano. Talk about the O2 card with Shields and Marshall and Baumgartner and Mayer. The fact that you know top ranks Bob Arum, who poo-pooed the Taylor Serrano card, said, "Oh God, who would want to watch women's boxing?"
Yeah.
Which he's been doing for 25 years, by the
Yeah,
way.
that's nothing new. I mean, he's made his
Nothing new,
opinion on
you
women's
know.
boxing
Move
known.
along. He said that in the 70s. He said it in the 80s. But when Taylor Serrano ended up with 1.5 million views on DAZN and sold out the main room at the Madison Square Garden, he went, "Oh, I guess maybe boxing is something." So when the O2 card came up, he was like, "Yep, yep,
Yeah.
put Mayer on that card." So that's how that all works out. Money
Yeah.
talks.
Money
Fans
does
and
talk.
seats
It's
talk.
a very sad fact, especially for women in boxing, but that's just the sad reality that we have to face every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Hi, Eric. Welcome in. How are you? Eric says, how do organizations like Talk and Fight best support women's boxing? What can we do different? Oh, that's my Eric from the back.
Hey, well, first of all, I gotta say, Talk and Fight is amazing because you are showcasing women on your podcast. You've got Brooks, you've got oh God, sorry, I'm having a brain
Sugar.
moment.
The sugar.
Sugar,
Yep. The
yeah, you got the Stafford
Stafford
report,
Boxing Club.
and
And
you've
then
got Brown. Oh gosh, the woman from Canada. I'm blanking. Sugar, yeah, Sugar
yeah,
Show.
sugar.
So you got
And then
these wonderful shows which give a real opportunity for folks to amplify the voices of women in the sport. You've been bringing women who are involved in the sport on your show. I know the Stafford Report has been. They had this fantastic interview with Marion Trimier, Lady Tiger, one of the true pioneers of the sport, who not only put her life on the line as a fighter, but then was engineered a hunger strike, literally a hunger strike, to bring voice to equity for women in the sport in the 1980s. Her interview was fantastic. So that is an amazing opportunity to give voice to that, and then just to amplify on social media the positive things about the sport and be a positive voice for growth of the sport, positive amplification of good stories and good opportunities for fights to happen, and also then calling out the negative. Why is it the PBC can get away with never having females on their boxing cards? I don't understand it. I
no,
don't understand why the networks themselves are not pushing for that. I don't get it.
I
It's,
don't
to
get it either.
me, lousy business because
Very.
women deliver. Women deliver with the best, finding the best.
Yes. That's the one thing that you can always say about women, and pretty much 99% of women athletes, 99% of them want to fight the best there is, period. Like, and
Yeah.
we don't duck, we don't dodge, we don't not
Nope.
sign the dotted line. We talk the talk and we walk the walk. And when it's time to fight, it's down to business. Most of them. I mean, there's been a few,
Yeah.
but it's not like on the men's side where you got all this hype and you build up to the fight for years and then you don't sign the dotted line because, well, I don't want to do a 60-40 split or a 50-50 split, or I'm the A side or you're the B side. Like, who gives a crap? Just fight.
Yeah, I mean, you
Fight.
have
That's
that,
what
or you have networks pushing. One of my pet peeves was ESPN pushing Nico Ali Walsh. Yeah, okay, he can fight, but they would never mention the fact that his aunt was Layla Ali. They would talk about his grandfather,
Yeah.
but it took. I think it was his fourth show and a lot of trolling,
Yeah.
frankly, before ESPN even bothered to mention, "Oh, hey, yeah, Layla Ali." Are you
Yeah, they
kidding
didn't
me?
at all. They only talked about him being Muhammad Ali's grandson. Like,
His aunt was. almost to this day in America anyway. If you say women's boxing, people say, "Oh,
Layla
Layla
Ali.
Ali,"
Yeah.
more than even Christie, because Layla Ali had this extraordinary experience.
Yes, very, very much so. Women's Boxing Channel says Lou DiBella has around 14 women and hardly ever puts any of them out.
I don't know. I can't really necessarily speak to them. I know that he's quite committed to women in the sport. He he promotes where he can. Um, I know that he's, the landscape of boxing in the United States in the last 4 years has really changed significantly. There's no regular boxing program. There's literally no boxing on television at all. It is barely on broadcast on cable. Most of
Mhm.
what we see is streamed even on ESPN
Yes.
Plus. They occasionally have a fight on their main card on their channels, but most of it is on ESPN. And I think Lou got caught in that transition because he was pushing out a lot of women when he was doing, prior to the COVID. He was pushing out. He was still fairly active with his Broadway boxing, which is sort of a small kind of club fighting thing, and pushing women onto cards that he could get at HBO or I'm sorry, at Barclays or at the Hulu Theater or up in Connecticut at CES. And he was, one of the first people to ever sign women in the first place. He had Fire, he had Heather, he had Sonia Lamonicas, he had Amanda for many years and put her on all of her Barclay cards. So, he did what he could. Now he's really not as involved, I would say, in boxing, but that's not, what where he really is with the women that are still on his um, show up on DeBella Entertainment, and whether they're really signed or really still active is another whole story. I do know that he's recently signed someone new and is pushing her, and he's has Jessica Cabrera, who just recently had a fight, and Heather is actually now working with Boxing Insider on doing promotions, and they've kind of got Lou DiBella sitting as their Dutch uncle, helping them sort of start into the promotional realm. So we'll see how that all works.
Yes. He says, hello, he hardly puts any out. Come on, he has no excuses. He's always doing men, but not women, apart from the off one or two. Well, I think
Well,
you
again, have that conversation with Lou. I know him as someone who has really honestly supported women for a very long time and works hard to do that. Um, his ability, again, his landscape is very different than it was 3-4 years ago,
yeah.
because how you place people on cards and what the ability to even have cards is very, very changed. He was having stuff that he was putting out on, like, I think it was the UFC channel live stream. He wasn't really even getting necessarily broadcast stuff all the time. And then he had a few fights that he was promoting here or there, but much less than he had been doing 5 years ago. I think my understanding that he is going to be sort of resurfacing Broadway boxing, but that's all I can say about it. Other than talk to Lou.
Yeah. Ask him, send them a message, Women's Boxing Channel. We don't know for sure. We just go with what we know. Eddie chimes in. How are you, Eddie? Holly Donovan on Talkin' Fight recently interviewed Hannah Rankin, Susie Q. Ramadan, Raven Chapman, the only female with Queensbury at the moment, Natasha Jonas, and Chantel Cameron. Yeah, Hannah Rankin also is another host on Talking Fight.
Oh, I didn't realize that she was hosting. That's great.
I'm sorry, Holly Donovan is the host.
Oh, okay. Holly Donovan. I
read that backwards.
Started, right? Or fairly recent. I think I tripped across her, but I really haven't had a chance to listen.
Yes, Holly is the host. I know, Eric. There were so many names in that comment that he flustered me. Okay.
Oh, that's Holly really great.
Is the host. Yeah, so she did some great interviews with some definitely amazing women. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
Women's boxing.
yeah, she's got a tremendous folks on there. Tasha Jonas, Chantel Cameron, they're brilliant, and Hannah is brilliant, and has a wonderful story. You know, as a classical musician turned boxer, and still does classical music. So she's quite something. I'm really taken
Yeah,
with,
definitely.
and with
Most
her
definitely.
humanity and her, taking the loss against Harper and such she was really so. She really handled that well. You know,
Right.
loss is terrible, especially loss of a belt, and she, I thought, was really quite good.
Women's boxing channel. You're very adamant about this one, I think. That ain't good enough. Fact is, I'm asking why he doesn't put them out, and the answer ask him isn't good enough. I'm calling the DeBella out, and so should others, as to why he favors men over women. I mean, women's boxing channel. I mean, come on. We all know that 90% of the promoters and the managers and everybody out there are all for the men. I mean, look how far we've had to come just to get put on cards. This is nothing new. I mean, yes, it's 2023, and they all should be. As a matter of fact, all the promoters that don't put women on, I think, should be called out. He's not the only one that's doesn't have that many stable of women. Bob Arum, all of them. They don't push women. There's Eddie Hearn is the only one that's fluently pushing women right now. I mean, is there other ones that are like really?
Listen, Matchroom still has cards that don't have women. DAZN has a card from time to that without women. Boxer just had the card with Liam Smith. There were no women on that card. Actually, Steffi Bull, who's Terry Harper's trainer, had a tweet out. Hey, how come there's no women on the card?
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes it's beyond the control of the promoters. Look, I'm not going to sit here and make just I can't speak for Lou DeBella, only in that I know him personally over the years, and I have seen him as a person of reasonable integrity and a crazy game, and as someone who has always supported women. Why there may not be women on his cards may not be necessarily under his control. I really cannot say. If you want to call him out, please do so. But I think it's not only black or all white. Yeah. Yes, and Boxer, they're new to this. Boxer just started under Ben Shalom, and this is a new player in the sport. They have the support of Sky Sports. They're doing wonderful work in terms of really looking to promote women. It's part of why Clarissa Shields is not boxing in America right now, because she's not getting what she deserves in the United States. She is getting heard and supported in the UK. And that's why she's there, And
I even back in my time, I mean, that was where I went to Mexico and Canada, but that's as far as I got. I never had the opportunity to go anywhere else overseas. But I'm telling you, if I'd have had the opportunity, I would have jumped on it in a heartbeat. That's where we all wanted to fight, because as long as I can remember, back in my time, they were supporting women over there from the beginning. They've always had women be main events and pushing women and giving them fair opportunities, and maybe not equal pay to the men, but a heck of a lot better pay than I ever saw in my day. So,
listen, I always tell the story of Alicia Ashley. I just adore her. She's a remarkable boxer who never had the opportunities to really fight that she should have had. But she has fought for major belts for $3,000 on a stage in Brooklyn. To make money, she would have to go down to Mexico and fight Mexican fighters on their turf, and even manage to win belts down there.
Prime example, my WBC title that I took from Mia St. John in Mexico, mind you, was the rematch. Right. I have no idea what Mia made. I'm sure she had a very nice payday, but I made $4,000. Yeah. And I was there for over a week.
Yeah, Alicia, I think, made around 20, which was a phenomenal amount of money. Can you imagine?
Then, yeah. No, I can't imagine getting 20 grand.
Yeah, so It's
$4K
amazing.
was my biggest payday.
Women are still making $4,000. You know, don't kid yourself. The B side, you know, when somebody who's the opponent,
Yes.
they're not making money.
No, they're not. That's
They are
why
not
I
making
did.
money. They're making a little more than they used to, but not in the United States. The United States is a disgrace.
No, I mean, I guess that's why I didn't get much, because I was the opponent in that fight.
And someone like Lou, just to kind of go back to that, the problem with that he has right now is he no longer has deals with networks because there are no networks anymore. You know, Golden Boy, which is showing more women now, and they're going down to like South America, Central America. They're going out of the United States to have these cards. They have a deal with DAZN, so they're able to have regular boxing shows that are televised, and they are promoting women. You know, they had a female what's her name, Yocosta Vale. I think that's her name. Sorry, I should have a cheat sheet of people's names and how to pronounce them. Anyway, she's from Costa Rica, remarkable boxer. She was the main event. They were like Marley Acosta. I think that's her. Anyway, there were a bunch of fights on that card. 2 women's fights were, main event and the co-main. Just great. And that was Golden Boy, right?
Yeah.
That's where Marlon Esparza is. But meanwhile, Sinisa Estrada left because she didn't feel she was getting the money she deserved from them, and made the deal and ended up with Top Rank, which I think was a surprise. Everybody figured she'd end up with Matchroom or something. As I said, Boxer is a new player. They came into the game when Matchroom went with DAZN, and DAZN split from Sky Sports. When that split, it meant that DAZN wasn't showing Sky Sports in America anymore, and it also meant their access to Matchroom fighters was gone, which is where those first women were. Boxer said, "Oh, goodness," and they started signing people up, and they made the deal with Sky Sports. So Boxer, as a promoter, has a network in Sky Sports, the same as Matchroom Boxing as a promoter has a network in DAZN. That's not to say that Matchroom won't be on somebody else's card and cross promote and all of those kinds of things, which makes it very complicated. But it's how they're able to have regular fight nights, regular cards, and so on. Yes. For the O2, there were a lot of decisions that were made to make that fight, of which Sky Sports had been wanting to do it for quite some time. So they were able, after Taylor Serrano, it was sort of prove the case of women being able to be the main event in a main arena. So it really kind of sold itself.
Yes. We've got messages flying in here, Melissa.
Oh, cool.
I have to scroll back down. I think I missed some. Eddie says DeBella works with other promoters too. For example, Lee Baxter in Toronto is supported by Luke and his females. Tony Issue, welcome in. Tony said Boxer did the all women card at the O2 last year. Yes, we were just talking about that.
That's right. Exactly right.
Women's Boxing Channel says, but we're talking about why the USA promoters don't push women yet. DAZN do Queensberry have Chapman? Boxer has loads too. Shame on the USA. Well, I think we literally just said that, Women's Boxing Channel. We agree. Shame on us for not doing better and supporting all the amazing, phenomenal women that are from the U.S.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to go over there. That would be the answer right there. Getting some better promotions over here and giving back to here, because I mean, yeah, it's great to have all the fights over there and everybody being successful over there, but then that just makes us, the USA fans and USA boxers, not being able to enjoy that experience. I mean, not everybody can afford to fly over there and buy tickets to go to watch the fight to support their families and stuff. So I mean, it's tough having to go over there and usually not having everybody with you because of where the fight is being held. So yeah, U.S. needs to do better. We definitely need to do better. Rob G says, Melissa, you should have a weekly talk and fight channel. You have so much to say on the intelligence front.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. That's very sweet.
Do you know Rob? I'm guessing you know Rob.
Thank you.
Um, I mean, Eric, we can talk about it. I don't know. Um, women's boxing channel. Think Matchroom had C14 and Boxer 12 and both got them out regular. The other day, Oscar De La Hoya dissed women's boxing, saying, "Now let's have some real boxing," referring to the men. Come on.
Well, yeah, we know this. What else is new? Meanwhile, he's a jerk, just like Bob Arum is a jerk. We know this. But meanwhile, they're putting women on their cards, so I don't really give a shit what he
Right.
says.
I mean, as
But-
long as the women are getting on the card, I really don't care what they say either.
And they're great fights and some real opportunities, you know. Like boxing in America, period, is a mess, right?
It is a
Where
mess.
is it? It used to be at least you had like Friday night fights, even though you'd love to hate
Yeah,
Teddy Atlas.
I miss HBO so much and Friday night fights.
Friday
Like,
night fights.
can we just go back to that?
Yeah, it was a
Can we
sure
rewind?
thing. We have zero now. We never
None.
know. Is there boxing? Isn't there boxing? I sit there, I go through 7,000 apps. I'm spending a fortune on, you know, what the heck is Fight TV? Who ever heard of Fight TV? I got to have it because I had to
Because
watch.
this one card, you can only watch it on Fight TV.
Exactly.
So we gotta buy
I
that
wanted to
one
watch Clary Plata. Fantastic fight on Fight TV. Really? That's the it. That was it.
Yeah.
So, plus, you know,
Mhm.
boxing has lost its place of pride in America. You know, you've got all this mixed martial arts, UFC. They've, you know, taken up the broadcast bandwidth. Every one of these channels is making a huge fortune from UFC, and all the related mixed martial arts promotional groups. They're making a lot of money on it. Women are doing really well. Their women's fights are doing well on those channels. So it's not as if you can't have women. They're happy to show women on doing mixed martial arts. It's boxing, right? Boxing is its own other little misery when it comes to acceptance of women in the sport. I was just kind of rereading some material. I was doing an introduction to my book and kind of having to give an overview of the sport in 5,000 words or more, 8,000 words of overview. And one of the things I was reminding myself of is how popular women's wrestling was in America in the 1950s.
Yeah.
You could see it everywhere. It was on cards. It was like in small local venues. And television essentially killed that sport because it didn't necessarily translate into the television environment of big time wrestling. And we're talking, you know, by the early 1960s, it was very difficult for women wrestlers to get recognized and get on cards.
Yeah.
At least because of the loss of the local wrestling shows in small venues around the United States. So, and boxing suffered similarly. Not that women were necessarily on cards, but they were fighting in the 1950s, and they did have fight cards. So, a lot of flux and change. And boxing right now is, you know, where it is in the United States, but it's alive and kicking in the UK. They have so many fights on any given day. And it's not as if we don't have a lot of fights here. It's just we can't see them. They're local club shows, and the local club shows are doing really well. And if you look at the roster of fighters on those local club shows, most of them have one or two women's fights on them. You know, in little places in Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, Florida, California, you name it. There are those opportunities.
Yeah, you just can't watch them.
Can't see them. You pray for YouTube. YouTube is my boxing channel, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you just wait till somebody posts it. Wait till somebody uploads it, right? So I mean, we kind of talked about the current state of women's boxing, and some of the challenges that are still out there. What do you think that the women need to do to fix the issues we've been talking about?
Well, I think women need to get into promotion. I mean, we need to really think through. There are a number of issues. Number one, we need to think through what promotion and the access to television or some kind of televised channels and the ability for it to be seen. The problem with most of these online streaming services is they cost a lot of money.
Yes,
Whether
they
you're
do.
paying on a per fight basis on Fight TV, you can have a subscription to Fight TV, for example, cost
But they
you
still have a pay-per-view card.
$49.95 a year, but it doesn't get you all the fights. You're still
No.
paying $19.95, $29.95, $39.95 to watch a specific show.
Yes.
That's how can people afford that when you can
Right.
watch UFC for free on TV on Fox?
Yeah.
So that's one problem. The second is, again, promotions are tied to, you need money to promote. You need to sell tickets. You need venues. Certain states, for instance, New York State has a lot of changes to their insurance laws because of a death in the ring, rightly so. But it makes it very, very difficult for small promoters to do shows.
Yes.
And it remains to be really problematic. So having the financing to support it and being ready to lose money, because that's what this is. It's a money out thing. Boxers, Sky Sports lost a lot of money on the O2 event. They made money, but they lost money. What they put in, but they're in it for the long haul. They have the legs for it. A small organization does not necessarily have that opportunity. So being able to promote on a small level, small basis, having access to fighters, doing them fairly, having access to some kind of streaming so that you're able to provide your product, even if it's for free on Facebook, which some promoters do, or free on YouTube. Just put it out there.
Yeah.
And maybe sell something on the other end. You're getting you're getting eyes on your fighters. So maybe there's the opportunity, if you're growing your organization, to also sell tickets in bigger venues or have them come in and become involved with those fighters.
Yes.
So that's one of the things. And women getting involved more in promotions, getting involved more in broadcast, and starting to take some of the exercising some of the power in that, I think is very, very important for the sport overall, as well as continuing to advocate for equity, not only in terms of pay, but in terms of treatment.
Yeah.
Then we have to deal with this nonsense about 2 versus 3 minute rounds. Give me a friggin' break. It is not a woman's call as to whether or not she fights 3 minutes or not.
No.
It is the sanctioning bodies.
Yes.
WBC will not, under any circumstance, sanction any fight over 2 minutes. That is now the standard, 10-by-2. Does it mean women can't fight 12-by-3? No. It just means they're not able to in most sanctioning situations.
Right.
Listen, I work out 3 minute rounds. I'm 68 years old, okay? 3 minute rounds is not the issue.
No.
It's the opportunity. The other thing, and this is where the economics get into it. If you have even a championship fight at 10-by-2, that's 20 minutes. If you have underneath that an 8-rounder fight, 8-by-2 is 16 minutes. That saves a lot of money for promoters. He can throw a woman on the card. It's only 20 minutes rather than 36.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If he has an 8-rounder, he can even have 2 8-rounders, and it's one male fight. So, that's that. Will this evolve? Yes. There's a lot of work behind the scenes to evolve that, to say, hey, listen, let's really look at 3 minute rounds. There's a little bit, WBC's point is it's related to head injuries and
concussions.
Women being more susceptible to adverse conditions from concussions. There needs to be a lot more research in that, a lot more, which is money, which people don't want to spend. So there's that. Right. Then there's the question, well, should we go for things like an undisputed or a unification fight? Do a step up from there. Go 10 12 by 2 rather than 10 by 2. So 10 by 2, you get your champion, you get your WBC belt. But if you're going for a unification for one of the 4 majors, you go 12 by 2. So I think these are areas under discussion, and we'll see how things evolve over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
After that, one wrinkle will be the fact that Olympic boxing is on the chopping block. Even for 2024, it's slated for 2024. Women will, the IOC is already managing the process. They've taken that out of the hands of the IBA. But 2028 in Los Angeles, just don't know. For now, it is not on the roster of sports, so we don't know what will happen. It will have an adverse effect for women because many large organizations, national boxing organizations, support their teams precisely because of the Olympics.
Yes.
Take the Olympics out of the equation. Don't know that the money is going to be there to support their fighters. So,
right.
not necessarily in the United States, but we're talking 150 odd countries that have organizations. So it gets to be really problematic.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you brought up the 3 minutes. I think a lot of people out in the public and fans and everybody think that it's all up to the fighters, and would they? It's not that. Every fighter, every female that I know would happily fight 3 minutes if the pay was equal. One, I'm not fighting an extra minute around for the same pay that I'm getting now.
Well, yeah, that's another issue. Is again
but
pay
it's
equity.
Not up to us either. That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah,
but
and
we don't have the choice. Like we're not giving the choice.
Exactly. Women are not necessarily, like, for instance, some states still only allow 2-minute rounds. Again, in other countries, you have national boxing organizations. In the United States, we have 50 states and 50 different athletic associations that have the rules and regulations. For instance, in New York State, a fighter named Sue Reno went to the New York State Boxing Commission and said, hey, how come on the books it only says we can fight 2-minute rounds? And they went, oh, oops, okay. They changed the rule. So women can fight for 3-minute rounds in New York State. There's only been one fight, Sue Reno's fight, because most people just don't even have the appetite to fight 2 minutes. Meanwhile, WBA allows 3-minute rounds. So the Sinisa Estrada Marlon Esparza fight was 10 by 3 when they fought. And Marlon Esparza has fought a couple of times with 3-minute rounds, not for WBC, but under WBA and prior to fighting for her fight. That in Las Vegas, there's a long history of that, thanks to Layla McCarter, who fought in the aughts, fought Melissa Hernandez and Belinda Laracuente 3 by 12 for championship fights. But it in a lot of other places, it's still not necessarily allowed because of, not even necessarily because of the sanctioning body, but because the state organization in the United States may not allow anything more than 2 minutes in their rules. So it's very convoluted and complicated.
Very. It is very. It's very complicated. Let's see. Women's Boxing Channel says in the UK, the girls all get out regular, no problem. USA always makes out problems. They do. Yes, they do. I agree, Women's Boxing Channel. Tierra Brown example, great fighter, no fights. Same with Lou Bella's fighters and Ronica Jeffries.
Well, I believe Ronica Jeffries doesn't fight anymore.
She hasn't fought.
Yeah, she hasn't fought since 2019. Yeah, I interviewed her actually, and she did really well. And Ronica had done really well. Then she went on a break, and then she came back to it. She was having issues. Well, there were issues with her management and everything else. Had nothing to do with a promoter. And then she decided to box again. She did. She was quite successful. She fought, Dina Thorslin? Was that her? Anyway, she had a really great fight. Fought for a belt to a draw, but then has sort of receded, and she is not boxing now. She's doing training. She works as a trainer. Tara Brown, yeah, she ran into a lot of issues. She is no longer with Lou. I know she, in fact, we've been trying to get her on our show. And she is, she's a police officer. She's moved down to Florida. She had a couple of fights. It came to things where she'd be on a card, and then the card was canceled. And this is in the last year or so. So I'm not entirely sure where she's going now, but I know she's no longer with Lou DiBella.
Okay. Women's Boxing Channel says minutes in any fight except a championship fight. Are you referring to the 2 minutes and the 3 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Yeah, we as fighters have no say over that. I can tell you the only reason that I would turn down fighting a 3-minute fight, which is probably the answer that most women would give you, the only reason that would stop us from taking a 3-minute fight is if the pay doesn't equal the 3 minutes rounds, because I'm not going to fight an extra, minute every round for the same amount of pay that I'm fighting a 2-minute round. The pay is going to have to be there. That's probably literally the only reason a pro fighter female would say no to a 3-minute fight. Otherwise, we all want to be equal. We all want equality across the board. So there's no female that I know personally that would not take a 3-minute fight. The only reason we would say no, or me personally, is if the pay didn't change. Women's Boxing Channel says, say it again, women are sanctioned to fight any fight over 3 minutes except championship fights, which have to be 2 minutes. I don't know. That one kind of confused me.
Well, my understanding is WBC in particular will not sanction any bout that is championship bout, including, baby belts, any belt, anything that WBC has anything to do with. They will only, the maximum is 10-2.
Yes.
Period.
Period.
Other sanctioning organizations are more flexible, but you also have the issue of the jurisdiction of the fight and what their rules are and what the network will allow, which is another whole complexity.
Yeah, whole other thing.
It gets very, very complicated. But there are states where women may not box more than 2-minute rounds because it's in their rules. Exactly.
Tony says maybe women could do 15 rounds like the old days. 15-2 equals 30.
Right. That's still less, right?
That's good, Tony. That's good. So then we'd be at the 30 mark. Like we'd get there. Hey, why not? Just add some more money. I'm sure that there'd be plenty
plus
of
the 15 minutes for the extra minute between rounds.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's funny. Too good, Tony. I like that one. So let's see. I mean, I guess out of all the fighters that you've met and experiences you've been through, can you tell me what's like the worst? I mean, because I know you're real big on this, but the worst like controversy or discriminatory thing or like crap or BS you've seen women have to go through?
Well, it's just the constant sexualization of women and really and denigration of their skills and abilities and their right to even be there. As I said, when I was doing research for the book, and this is now, I started really researching women's boxing in 2010. So I've been now researching and really examining the history of the sport for 13 years, 12 years, whatever. And I remember when I was first looking at YouTube to find women's bouts that I could watch and learn and report on and so on, I was astounded at the vitriol against women. And nothing's changed. There's a few more positive comments, but there's still really horrific stuff written every day.
Yeah.
And no one deserves that.
No.
The sexualization of women, one way or another, no one deserves that. Impugning people for their sexuality, no one deserves that. It has nothing to do with boxing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. And it's disgraceful. So I would say that is remain though. But it speaks to the larger issue of women in our society, and the fact that women are not respected in our society. Look at, well, I'm not going to get into the politics of it necessarily, but
I think everybody on the podcast knows the politics side of it all.
but I will say that it's disgraceful,
Very.
and there's no place for it in our discourse. Unfortunately, people feel that they can just do so with impunity, and I find that's my biggest bone in terms of the public view of the sport. I really appreciate that there are committed journalists in the sport who really, really and truly support women and their reportage is brilliant. Their features are brilliant. They really understand the issues and put it out there. And I think that has really changed the perspective of people very, very much. And so I applaud that. And I would say that that's a very positive change that I've seen in this period of time when I've really been focused on the sport and its meaning to us as a cultural artifact of the place of women in our culture.
Yes. I totally agree with that. Yeah. And it's not gotten any better. And I don't know that it will anytime soon, just like the rest of the stuff. Women's Boxing Channel says Ebony Bridges. You want me to read this out loud?
No, don't. Please don't. Please don't.
Yeah. Women's Boxing Channel. We read it. I personally have, okay, I'm going to speak on this because I personally went to one of Ebony Bridges' fights in Indiana in 2020. It was the Mary McGee was fighting. Ebony Bridges was on the card. Tish Robinson had a comeback fight on that card. The fight was in Indiana. I am from Illinois. I bought my dad. I asked my dad and my brother to go. My husband, we all went, bought front row seats because I wanted to support the women. I had been retired for years, but I still wanted to support. It was an all women's card. I met Ebony Bridges at that fight. Ebony Bridges to me is a very respectable, nice, down-to-earth woman. What I'm going to say about this is I don't agree with a lot of the things that Ebony is doing. I personally would not do because I'm a mother and I wouldn't want my kids to look back in the future and maybe feel some type of way. But hi, Mike. But what I can say is Ebony is making money where there's money to be made. So she's very smart in that aspect because people pay for what they want. That she's giving the people what they want and what they're asking for. I personally don't agree with it and wouldn't do it personally, but I do not judge Ebony Bridges as a person because she is a very, very wonderful person because I've met her in person. So I have nothing negative to say about her. I would go about things a little bit differently and maybe a little bit more discreetly personally. But I do not knock her because she's making money. She's doing what she needs to do to make the extra money that she needs to do the training, whatever else she has to do. It takes a lot. A lot. I mean, people don't really understand what all it takes. And if she can make a lot of money doing that, hey, I'm not going to knock her because she's making money. So yes, I mean, a lot of people may not agree with some of the things she wears and some of the things she does and how she goes about it, but she's just playing the game. She's playing the system the way the system plays us all. That's all she's doing. She's just reversing the system, and she's playing the game and playing the people and getting money out of it. So, I mean, kudos to her. I mean, she's getting the extra payday. So that's just her way of doing it. But her as a person, as an individual, is a very, very nice woman, very respectable woman, talks very intelligently. She's very smart. And she's just taking advantage basically and getting her money. So I have nothing bad to say about her. I personally wouldn't do that, but to each their own. And if it's getting her money, it's getting her money. So that's how I feel about on Ebony Bridges. And I told people when I saw Ebony Bridges fight live, she was the fight of the night to me that night. Out of all those women cards, she is a bulldog. It's very similar style to mine. They're hard to come by. Fighters that fight like that these days, I should say. They're a lot more technical, boxers, movers, slipping and weaving. That was not me. I mean, anybody that knows me that's on here, I was the brawler mentality, straightforward, like go, go, go. My offense, offense, offense. Which is how I won a lot of my fights against technical fighters. She has that same go forward strategy, and that's just she's just a dog. Like she can take the punches and she can deliver the punches. So I loved watching her fight live because she so reminded me of me when I was fighting. I was like, man, she looks kind of like me in there. So I told people then that watch out for Ebony Bridges because she's coming, and she's a beast in the sport, and she's going to do big things. She's not done. I know people keep underestimating her because of her looks and her appearance and how she does things and yada yada yada. But the girl can fight. She can fight. So
Yeah, I think she's tops. I love her. I think
yeah,
she's a great. She really has worked very hard. She's, as you say, she's just a come forward bulldog in the ring, and
yeah.
but she's also really working hard to get skills. You know, this is a woman who had 2 amateur fights, and then went on and just said, "Hey, I'm old. I'm not going to make it in the amateurs. I want to box." So she turned pro. It was kind of real old school, and so I really appreciated her as a fighter. I think the vitriol against her is unfortunate.
Women's boxing channel. The only reason did that is I'm pretty sure you've been on every one of my shows live, and you know I have absolutely no problem reading or saying anything about how I feel, exactly how I feel, because I'm pretty sure you were on my first show. I did it out of respect for Melissa being on the show. That's why I asked her if she wanted me to read it out loud. Um, that's the only reason, because you know if I wouldn't have had Melissa on the show, I absolutely would have read it out loud and I would have gave you the same response I just gave you. Um, but out of respect for her, I asked first before I read that out loud, just because I didn't know if she would be comfortable with that. So I'm just respecting Melissa. That's the only reason I didn't read it out loud. Just so you know, I'm not.
And I can tell you the reason I said no was I had just finished talking about disrespect for women in public forums, and I felt the language was disrespectful. So no, I didn't want to read it. It was I felt kind of disrespected just reading that language. There was another way to say that. And the whole point of this is elevating how we view women in the sport. We don't have to agree with their promotional opportunities, with how they do it, but there's also language we can use that is positive to each other, and respectful of each other, and how we are viewing these opportunities. I have no problem, like sure I can read it, but why?
Yes. Eddie Barrington says she's a great fighter too. Yes, I agree, Eddie. I've already commented on that. Michael. Hey, Mike, thanks for tuning in with me tonight. I have missed you. He says, hey, WBC. Mike says hi. How's the show going tonight? Well, I think it's going pretty well, Mike. I think we're having a good time, and we've covered a really lot of topics, some really good topics. You missed it, so you're going to have to do the rewind button when we get off here and watch it. We were rewinding in the beginning of the episode, too. Chill, Eddie says, WBC. Eddie says chill. Women's Boxing says, how dare you censor people's views? Just why? Okay, Women's Boxing Channel. Now, I don't censor anything on my show. I do not censor things. If you watched my very first episode when Sonia Drilling did not show up on my show, I told you exactly how I felt about the situation. I have no problem speaking my mind. Anybody that knows me knows that when I switch into the no mercy side of me and the not Brooke side of me, there is no censoring. And I don't care what you say, you can't stop what I'm going to say. But I just explained out of respect for my elder, Melissa over here, who is a very good friend of mine. I didn't think she'd be comfortable with me reading the comment. I apologize if it made you feel some type of way. You know, I always support you. I love your comments. I love you supporting my show. But I just wanted to give her that respect because I knew she wouldn't be comfortable with me reading that. That's the only reason. Let's see. Eddie, I agree with Melissa 100%. Nice. Thank you. D. Garcia, nicely said. Thank you. You shouldn't be saying no to anyone. Wow. So we positive things only rubbish. We tell the truth, and that's the problem with folks. Referring to Melissa, not you. I'm referring to Melissa, not you. Oh, I'm sorry, Women's Boxing Channel. She did give you her reasoning as to why she felt some type of way about it. Maybe just, can you reword the question? Can you respect her enough to reword the question, and then I'll read it out loud? Can you do that for me? Let's see. Back to my questions now. Back to where we were. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I know the last thing I was going to talk about was the dementia, but we covered that early, so that's good. I don't have to cry at the end. Is there anything else that we might have missed or that you want to throw out there to the people listening and the fans everywhere before we wrap it up?
Well, no, first of all, I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to be on your fourth show. I'm such a fan of you and so appreciative of you putting yourself out here to build up this discussion and this dialogue. I'm sorry that WBC feels that I am censoring them. I'm not. I'm just not engaging with certain language, and that's my prerogative ultimately.
Yes.
But more to the point, women's boxing is multidimensional, has many aspects to it. My perspective is that we're always looking to ways to elevate the sport. And if we don't like the way someone is presenting themselves, we can certainly have that dialogue. And I can understand why people might find Ebony, as an example, offensive. To me, she's a woman just very at one and at peace with her own sexuality and out with her own sense of being, which works for me. And I think that's kind of the point of women's boxing anyway, is women out there just being themselves and practicing a sport they love in a way that they love, in any way they can, because they kind of need to do the sport. They need that for their own growth and development as human beings. Certainly that's what I've derived from boxing in my own experience in the ring and just working out and sparring, and haven't had the need to compete. I was too old when I got into it, but that didn't matter to me. It's just about the sport and about the community, and that opportunity to support it is the most meaningful. So I really appreciate your being here to give me some opportunity to talk about my love of it.
I appreciate that so much. Tony, what's the name of the book, Melissa, and when is it out? So the first book she's already wrote is A History of Women's Boxing. It's in the link, also in the description somewhere down here, to Amazon, where you can purchase that one. If you're talking about the new book that's coming out next year, do you have a name for it yet?
The working title is The Promise of Women Boxing. And, we'll see what that comes out with. It'll be published by Rowman and Littlefield, the same publisher I have now, sometime sort of latter part of 2024, sorry. It's due at the publisher at the end of June. Well, hope I make it. And then
Fingers
it takes about
crossed,
a
fingers
year to
crossed.
put it
You
out.
got this. You got this. No problem for you, Melissa. You got this. Oh, goodness gracious. What's the overall message that you would like to leave to all the women boxers out there tuning into the show?
um, as an advocate, I always have your back. I love you. You you take my breath away for what you're able to achieve and do in the ring, outside of the ring. And it, I guess I feel that my work in the sport is to be an ally and an advocate
Mm-hmm.
for equity, better treatment, better opportunity. And you're right to just do what you love best, which is box.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good message. And I want to thank you for all the things that you're doing for women's boxing because even just putting out the history of the boxing and speaking on all these issues and challenges and everything. I'm trying to do the same thing. That's why we started this show. Um, I'm mainly focusing too on really just bringing all the BS to light. Like, I really want people to really understand what we had to
Right.
go through. Like, nobody really, really knows, like, all the dirt that we had to deal with.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that I've got my Eric, you're going to be so proud of me. Like, I've been contacting everybody I talked about being on the show, which I don't have all of them booked yet, but I'm like booked all the way out to in June with
That's
interviews.
amazing.
Yes, I have a list. I started a list and I have everybody just stay tuned because there's going to be some amazing people on here, but I am booked all the way out to June. I'm into June booking my shows with people that are going to be on
Wow.
for interviews. Um, but I'm hoping that all of them will be comfortable enough with me since I've been there in their shoes that they will spill all of the dirt and the discrimination and the controversy and the BS that they had to go through because I feel like it's time that all the fans and the current fighters really realize what all from all the way back to the very first boxer all the way to my time and beyond all the steps and the shit that we had to go through to get where we are today um, because nobody really talks about I think on my first show I talked about one bad experience I had. I don't know if you caught that episode, but I talked about one bad experience that I had. There's many, uh, and nobody ever talks about them just because I think I said in the first episode, if you guys watched it, when it was about when I had Mike on interviewing me, and I think it was that episode. I talked about one experience that I had in the Garside fight, um, and what all took place and inspired in that fight, and how we got to the outcome of that fight. Um, it was completely wrong. I fought that fight. I didn't get responses, but that's just how it goes. But there's a lot of those things that we all have to deal with, and people just don't understand or know. And I feel it's time that people know. I'm not fighting anymore. I haven't fought in years. People would always say, no, it's just excuses, excuses, excuses. They're not excuses. And that's exactly why I never talked about it prior to now. But I'm hoping that the people I get on the show, I know they've all been through have similar stories to mine. Um, and I'm hoping they'll be comfortable enough with me to at least share one story. Maybe not all of them, but at least one thing that happened that was some crap. So that's kind of my goal is to just really get the truth out there and for all of the current fighters and future fighters to really see how hard we worked and all the dirty, dirty stuff we went through and kept fighting through to help keep growing the sport. Because it certainly wasn't easy and we put up with a lot of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm going. I mean, I'll give my stories bit by bit as we go on with the show. So everybody keep tuning in. If you really want to know the Brooke story, maybe one day we'll just do a Q&A on me for one of the shows. But yeah, that's kind of where we're going with it. That's the goal, and that's what we're shooting for, and just get everybody that I can get in contact with. I had a lot of contacts already, so that's where we started, and we'll just grow from there. So yeah, hopefully everybody will enjoy it, and we'll go from there. But that's what the goal is. I guess before we hop off with that, Women's Boxing Channel says wasn't dissing her at all, was opinionated about Bridges getting her boot. Women's boxing. I asked you to reword it, which you reworded it. I know women's boxing. Nobody backs women more than you. I 100% agree with you. You're in every one of my shows. You're on all of Sugar's shows. You definitely know your facts, and you correct us on if we got something wrong. But we're just trying not to disrespect Melissa and how she feels about it. So you didn't use bad language, and we're not censoring the bad language. She wants to censor the degrading comment that you made. Let's just put it that way. She feels like the comment was degrading, and she doesn't want to degrade any one of the fighters. That's kind of where she went with that. No, I don't. Your opinion is fine. I don't think she has a problem with your opinion, and I don't think she's disagreeing with your opinion either. I think she sees your point of view. I mean, we all see your point of view. We totally understand where you're coming from. I just have enough respect for Melissa. I knew she wouldn't be comfortable with those terms. That's all. Wasn't bad words. Thank you very much, Melissa. Great show. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I've kept you for long enough, probably 2 hours now. So I'm going to let you go back to your evening. Tell the husband I said hello. Tell everybody I
Thank
said
you
hello.
so much.
And I can't wait to see you again in October. Did you want to say hi?
Yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the 10th anniversary. It'll be a fantastic experience, and I'm so grateful that I have coverage to be able to attend, and I'm thrilled, and I'm just happy about the whole thing. Really looking forward to it.
Me too. The husband is looking forward to it too. He just popped in to say hello to you.
Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. Happy.
There we go.
Happy to be here.
Awesome.
We're just wrapping it up.
So we'll see you this year, right?
October.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to have such a blast in Vegas.
Awesome.
2 days this time.
Yeah, we'll try to stay longer. We only did a couple of days. Maybe we might try to do 4 or 5.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I usually come in when I fly in Thursday, I get in mid-afternoon, and then I fly out on Sunday. So
yeah, that's like what we did.
Yeah,
that's about what we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the extra day and spending time with.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Is that afternoon on the 6th,
yes.
Friday afternoon.
Very much so.
Just chilling.
Yeah, me too. Women's Boxing Channel, Tony, everybody over in the comments, Mike,
thank you,
Eric, Eddie. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today.
Michael, Melissa, right? You got Michael.
I'm trying to scroll.
Yeah.
Michael, Rob. I missed Rob.
And Women's Boxing Channel. I appreciate you.
Boxing Channel, yes. We appreciate you. Melissa, I will let you hop out. I'm gonna finish up the out the show, and then I'll be out in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, hon.
Bye. Have a great night.
You too. All right, everybody. Once again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Everybody, thank you so much in the comments. Everybody that left a comment, everybody that chimed in, I appreciate you so much. I love your comments. I love that you guys are asking questions and you're participating in the chat. It makes it that much better of a show when I have people over there talking with me. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Melissa's great person. Please make sure you like, subscribe down below, share this for everybody to watch. There is a donate button below for those of you that would like to donate to my cause for the show. appreciated, not necessary. I just like you being here with me either way. Please make sure you can follow me on all my other social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all under. I have two separate pages, y'all. It's Brooke No Mercy Dierdorff-Millbrook, and there's also my podcast page, of course, No Punches Pulled with No Mercy. Thanks again for tuning in. I will see you all again, same time, same place, next Tuesday. Everybody say hi to my daughter over here because she wanted to come in and say hi, apparently. This is my daughter. But I will see you guys all again, same time, same place, next Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time with the next episode of No Punches Pulled with No Mercy. Until then, remember, punch hard because nothing else matters. Bye, guys.